Actually, it's somewhat of a myth that anybody that works in a guitar factory or shop is a guitarist. That's more your classic luthier. I think it's more a romantic perception that everybody with hands-on experience working around guitars is always going to be a musician or a guitarist. And this type of work, it's more or less a culmination of many different specialists, where my background more in woodworking and aesthetic lines of design and color and art and those other aspects, visual aspects in a musical instrument that makes it interesting and very unique, because it is kind of once again, like a culmination of several aspects of art and craftsmanship. And Don and I had always been involved with our own, let's say, collecting of vintage and nostalgic type 30s, 40s items, you know, whether it's kitchen odds and ends, furniture, vintage clothing or ties, postcards, whatever. Any of that nostalgia from that time period is very interesting. It's kind of that post-industrialist type of artwork and thinking, let's say. And there was just a very unique, intense, bold attention to everything that was very appealing, more so than other time periods like the Victorian or other time periods in the past. These decades of 20s, 30s, and 40s were just a very interesting little bit of history that seemed to fall into our laps. And really, the national guitar is just a very unique instrument that no one was really pursuing as far as manufacturing, and one thing led to another, basically. Working with the Dobros and occasionally getting nationals in there for repairs or whatnot, we were always just drawn towards the styling of the nationals and their own uniqueness. And that's all I can say. It just was there, and we just decided to do it.
ナショナルの生産量は月に20本から25本。しかし現在作っているスタイル O のバックオーダーはすでに数ヶ月分になっている。アセンブリーをしているドナルドに、もう少し規模を大きくするつもりはないのですかと尋ねると、彼はこう答えた。そうだね、月に30本くらいにはしたい。それで十分だよ。大会社には興味がないんだ。ドナルドは今レゾネーターが3つついているトリプルコーンのナショナルを復活させようと計画している。
The first resonator guitar I ever saw, I was interested in guitar as a child. And one Sunday morning, I was supposed to go to Sunday school, but I ditched and I ran away, and I was running around downtown in the little town that I lived in, and I've got a train here. And all the stores were closed, and I walked by a pawn shop, This was in 1963. And hanging in the window of the pawn shop was a guitar that one of these. It was hanging in the window. Of course, it was all together. And it was for $35. And I looked at it and I marveled and I thought, what kind of guitar is that? I thought it was some kind of electric guitar because of the, looked like speakers in it. That was my first exposure to a resonator guitar. As I became a teenager, I became interested in blues music, and all the pictures of these blues guitarists, many of them had old Nationals. And I would hear that sound and see that interesting looking guitar, and I was hooked. As I became a teenager, I had to either go to college or go to work, and so I happened to find out that the Dobro Guitar Company was in the town where I lived. So I needed a job. I walked down there and applied, and they called me a week later and said, come to work for us. That was in 1972. So I went to work for Dobro. At that time, it was still owned by the Dopiera brothers, and I worked side by side with Ed and Rudolph Dopiera for a number of years. And that's, I think initially for 2 years I worked with them. Then I left and started building my own guitars for a while. Went broke doing that, and I went back and they hired me again. And on and off with Dobro for many years until we started this. When I went back to work for Dobro in '84, they hired me as the plant supervisor. At that time, it seemed like the interest in National was just starting to grow. There's always been a subculture of guitarists who admired and loved Nationals. It seemed like Dobro guitars with the interest in bluegrass was very prominent. You'd see it everywhere, people playing Dobro, you'd hear it on TV commercials. But whereas the National guitar was a little bit more obscure. Dobro was in production, they were currently being made. They made a variation, a metal body type guitar that was similar to the Nationals, but not quite. But with seeing that there was a growing interest in the Nationals, I think that's what finally convinced McGregor and myself to try this and to provide a guitar that was very close to some of the original designs of the 1920s. And we've been amazed at the interest in it, that continuing interest, and more information is being made available. Bob Brosman writing his book. It seems like almost every other guitarist that you see a picture of these days is playing a National of some sort or another. It's almost a status symbol to have an old metal guitar.
You reckon red, said hurry, hurry, gal, you love is dead. I got a letter this morning. How do you reckon red? Yeah, it's hurry, hurry, cause the gal you love is dead. Oh, I grabbed up my suitcase, took her down the road. When I got there, she was laying on a cooling board. I say, I grabbed up my suitcase. Yes, I took her down